She demanded no contact during our break. A week later, she tagged me in a thirsty post. I didn't respond. I simply changed my profile picture to one of me on a date with a beautiful woman. The no contact rule was suddenly broken by 22 missed calls from her. I, 29M, thought I knew what no contact meant. Apparently, I was wrong. The text came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. She needed space. We needed to take a break. And most importantly, absolutely no contact between us during this time. I stared at my phone screen, reading her message 3 times before the reality sank in. After 2 years together, this was how it ended. Not with a conversation, but with a clinical text message that felt like a legal document. I didn't respond. What was there to say? She'd made her position crystal clear, and I wasn't about to beg or argue my way back into something that clearly wasn't working for her anymore. I set my phone aside and tried to process what had just happened. The next morning felt surreal. I woke up expecting to see her good morning text, the one that had arrived every day for the past 18 months. Instead, my phone showed nothing but work emails and a few messages from friends. The absence hit harder than I'd anticipated. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into projects I'd been putting off, stayed late at the office, and even volunteered for weekend assignments. Anything to keep my mind occupied. My colleagues noticed the change, but were kind enough not to comment. The routine helped, but evenings were the worst. Coming home to an empty apartment, no one to share dinner with, no one to talk about the day's events. By Thursday, I'd started to feel like myself again. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by a strange sense of clarity. Maybe this break was exactly what I needed too. I'd been so focused on making the relationship work that I'd forgotten what it felt like to just exist for myself. Friday evening, my college friend called. He was visiting the city for the weekend and wanted to catch up. We met at our old hangout spot downtown, and for the first time in days, I found myself genuinely laughing. He updated me on his recent promotion, his new apartment, and the woman he'd been seeing. Hearing about his life reminded me that the world hadn't stopped spinning just because my relationship had hit pause. The weekend passed quietly. I cleaned my apartment, organized my closet, and even started reading a book I'd bought months ago but never opened. Small things, but they felt significant. Like I was reclaiming parts of myself that had gotten lost somewhere along the way. Monday brought an unexpected message from my sister. She was planning a surprise birthday party for our cousin and needed help with decorations. I agreed immediately, grateful for something to focus on besides my own situation. The party planning kept me busy throughout the week, coordinating with vendors, picking up supplies, and helping with the guest list. The party was Saturday night, and I'd almost forgotten how good it felt to be around family. Everyone was in high spirits, the music was perfect, and our cousin was genuinely surprised and delighted. My aunt, who'd always been like a second mother to me, pulled me aside during the evening. She asked how I was doing, really doing, with that knowing look that aunts seemed to perfect. I told her about the break, keeping it brief and matter of fact. Her response surprised me. She said sometimes the best thing we can do for ourselves is step back and see things clearly. Around midnight, as the party was winding down, my sister's friend approached me. I'd met her briefly before, but we'd never really talked. She was stunning, tall, with dark hair, and the kind of smile that made you want to keep talking to her. We ended up chatting for the rest of the evening, discussing everything from travel to books to our shared love of terrible reality TV shows. When she suggested we grab coffee sometime, I almost said no out of habit. But something in her eyes made me reconsider. Why shouldn't I say yes? I was single, technically speaking, and she was clearly interested. We exchanged numbers, and I found myself looking forward to seeing her again. Our coffee date happened Tuesday afternoon. What was supposed to be a quick hour-long meeting stretched into 3 hours of effortless conversation. She was intelligent, funny, and refreshingly direct about what she wanted from life. When she suggested we meet for dinner that weekend, I didn't hesitate to agree. The dinner date exceeded all my expectations. We went to this small Italian place she recommended, tucked away in a neighborhood I'd never explored. The food was incredible, but more importantly, I felt completely comfortable with her. There was no pressure, no walking on eggshells, no analyzing every word for hidden meanings. Just 2 people enjoying each other's company. After dinner, we walked through the nearby park, talking about our families, our careers, our dreams. She told me about her recent promotion at the marketing firm where she worked, her plans to travel to Southeast Asia next year, and her goal of running a marathon. I found myself sharing things I hadn't talked about in months. My interest in photography, my secret ambition to write a novel someday, my complicated relationship with my father. When we finally said goodnight, she kissed my cheek and told me she'd had a wonderful time. I watched her walk to her car, feeling something I hadn't experienced in months, genuine excitement about someone new. The next morning, I was going through the photos from our evening when I realized I had several great shots of us together. One in particular caught my attention. We were both laughing at something she'd said, the city lights creating a perfect backdrop behind us. I looked happy in a way I'd almost forgotten was possible. On impulse, I decided to update my profile picture. Not to make any kind of statement, just because it was a good photo and I looked genuinely content. I uploaded the image, added a simple caption about enjoying the city nightlife, and went about my day. The response from friends and family was immediate and positive. My cousin commented about what a great picture it was. A few college friends liked it within minutes. My sister texted me asking who the beautiful woman was, and I found myself smiling as I typed back that she was someone new I'd been seeing. I was in the middle of a work presentation when my phone started buzzing. At first, I ignored it. My policy during meetings was strictly no personal calls. But the buzzing continued, becoming increasingly insistent. During a brief break, I glanced at my screen and felt my stomach drop. 22 missed calls. All from her. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who had demanded absolute no contact, who had insisted we needed space without any communication, was now apparently desperate to reach me. I stared at my phone, watching as another call came in. Then another. The messages started arriving between the calls. Short, urgent texts asking me to pick up, saying we needed to talk, demanding to know who the woman in my picture was. The desperation in her words was palpable, and I found myself feeling a mixture of vindication and genuine sadness. I turned my phone to silent and finished my presentation. My colleagues had no idea that my entire world had just shifted again, and I preferred to keep it that way. Professional composure had become my default mode over the past 2 weeks, and I wasn't about to abandon it now. Update 1. During my lunch break, I finally listened to her voicemails. The progression was fascinating in its predictability. The first few calls were casual, almost nonchalant, asking me to call her back when I had a chance. By the 5th message, there was an edge to her voice. She wanted to know why I wasn't answering, reminded me that she just wanted to talk. The later messages revealed everything I needed to know about her true motivations. She'd seen my picture, seen me with someone else, and suddenly our break didn't seem like such a good idea anymore. The woman who had insisted on space was now asking when we could meet to discuss things. I deleted all the voicemails without responding. That evening, I had my second date with the woman from the party. We went to a local jazz club, and I found myself completely absorbed in her company. She noticed I seemed distracted at first and asked if everything was okay. I mentioned that my ex had been trying to contact me all day, breaking her own rule about no communication. Her response was perfect. She said that people often don't realize what they have until they see someone else appreciating it. But that kind of reactive behavior usually says more about insecurity than genuine feelings. She wasn't being catty or jealous, just observant and wise in a way that impressed me. As the evening progressed, I felt the weight of the day's drama lifting off my shoulders. This woman beside me was present, engaged, and genuinely interested in building something new rather than trying to resurrect something that had already failed. When I got home that night, there were 7 more missed calls and a string of increasingly frantic text messages. She wanted to know where I was, who I was with, and why I was ignoring her. The entitlement in her messages was staggering. The same person who had cut off all communication was now demanding immediate responses. I blocked her number and went to bed. Update 2. The next morning brought a new tactic. She'd somehow gotten my work email address and sent me a lengthy message about how she'd made a mistake, how she needed to see me, how we belonged together. The email was manipulative in its desperation, cycling through anger, pleading, and attempted guilt in equal measure. I forwarded the email to my personal account and deleted it from my work inbox. My job was the one place that had remained completely separate from our relationship drama, and I intended to keep it that way. My sister texted me around noon, warning me that my ex had tried to contact her, asking for information about my whereabouts and the woman I'd been seeing. My sister, bless her, had told her nothing except that I seemed happy and that she should respect the boundaries she'd set for their break. That weekend, I had my third date with the woman who was quickly becoming much more than just a distraction. We spent Saturday afternoon at a local art museum, wandering through exhibitions and debating the merits of various pieces. She had strong opinions about everything, delivered with a passion that was infectious. During lunch, she asked me directly about my previous relationship. I gave her the basic facts. We'd been together for 2 years, she'd initiated a break with no contact rules, and now she was trying to violate those same rules because she'd seen me moving on. Her response was both insightful and reassuring. She said that healthy relationships don't typically require breaks. Either two people want to work through their problems together, or they recognize that they're incompatible and move on. The whole concept of a break, in her opinion, was usually just a way to avoid making difficult decisions while keeping someone as a backup option. I realized she was absolutely right. Looking back, our relationship had been full of mixed signals, push and pull dynamics, and unclear expectations. I'd spent months trying to decode her moods and motivations instead of just enjoying being with someone who cared about me. That evening, we went back to her apartment and talked until almost sunrise. She showed me photos from her recent trip to Iceland, told me about her complicated relationship with her mother, and shared her fears about whether she was making the right career choices. In return, I found myself opening up about things I'd never discussed with anyone. My anxiety about the future, my struggles with self-doubt, my dreams of traveling to places I'd only seen in photographs. When I finally went home Sunday morning, I felt like I'd connected with someone on a level I hadn't experienced in years. There was no game playing, no hidden agendas, no walking on eggshells. Just two adults who enjoyed each other's company and weren't afraid to be honest about it. Update 3. Monday brought the nuclear option. My ex had somehow tracked down my new girlfriend's social media accounts and sent her multiple messages. I only found out because my girlfriend called me during my lunch break, more amused than upset. She read me some of the messages, which ranged from accusations about being a homewrecker to demands that she stop seeing me. The most ridiculous part was that my ex kept referring to me as her boyfriend, despite being the one who had initiated our break and demanded no contact. My girlfriend's response was perfect. She'd screenshotted everything and then blocked my ex on all platforms. She told me she'd dealt with jealous exes before and wasn't intimidated by someone who clearly couldn't handle rejection maturely. That evening, I made a decision I probably should have made weeks earlier. I wrote my ex a single email, keeping it brief and direct. I told her that her behavior was unacceptable, that our break was clearly permanent, and that any further attempts to contact me or anyone in my life would result in me involving the police. I also made it clear that I was seeing someone new, that I was happy, and that she needed to respect both the boundaries she'd originally set and my right to move on with my life. I ended by saying that I hoped she could find the happiness she was looking for, but that it wouldn't be with me. I sent the email and immediately blocked her on every platform I could think of. Then I deleted her contact information from my phone entirely. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. For weeks, I'd been carrying the weight of unfinished business, unclear expectations, and the possibility that she might want to reconcile. Now, with everything out in the open and boundaries clearly established, I could finally move forward without looking over my shoulder. That weekend, my girlfriend and I took a spontaneous trip to the coast. We drove with the windows down, stopped at roadside diners, and spent hours walking on the beach talking about everything and nothing. At one point, she asked me if I ever regretted how things had ended with my ex. I thought about it seriously before answering. The truth was, I regretted wasting so much time in a relationship that had never truly satisfied either of us. I regretted not recognizing the signs earlier and not having the courage to address our problems directly. But I didn't regret the way it ended, because it had led me to where I was now. 3 months later, my ex stopped trying to contact me entirely. Through mutual friends, I heard that she'd started dating someone else and was telling people that she was the one who had ended our relationship because I couldn't commit. I found that I didn't care what story she told herself or others. The truth was that we'd both been in a relationship that wasn't working, but only one of us had been mature enough to accept that reality and move forward constructively. My relationship with the woman from the party continued to grow stronger. We'd moved past the initial excitement phase into something deeper and more stable. She met my family during the holidays, and they adored her immediately. Her honesty, her intelligence, and her genuine affection for me were impossible to miss. Looking back, I realized that my ex had inadvertently done me the greatest favor of my life. Her demand for no contact had forced me to step back and see our relationship clearly for the first time. Her reaction to seeing me happy with someone else had revealed the controlling, manipulative side of her personality that I'd been making excuses for throughout our entire relationship. Most importantly, her behavior had shown me what I didn't want in a partner, which made it much easier to recognize and appreciate what I'd found with someone new. The break that was supposed to give us space to figure things out had done exactly that, just not in the way she'd expected. I'd figured out that I deserved better, that healthy relationships don't require breaks or complicated rules, and that the right person makes everything feel effortless rather than exhausting. 6 months later, when friends asked me about the whole situation, I could honestly say that I felt grateful for how everything had unfolded. Sometimes the best revenge isn't planning something elaborate or dramatic. It's simply living well and refusing to let someone else's chaos disturb your peace. The woman who had demanded no contact taught me the value of setting boundaries and sticking to them. The woman who broke those rules when it suited her taught me to recognize manipulation and respond with firmness rather than accommodation. And the woman in my profile picture? She taught me what it felt like to be with someone who was genuinely excited to be with me. No games required.